Well, as the euphoria of a return to power for some and the prospect of a new challenge for others begins to take hold, let's examine that policy trajectory the ANC must consider to make deep changes and to impact society. The former Statistician-General, whose office was charged with collecting the data that mirrors the state of life in South Africa, joins me now to make that assessment with this knowledge in mind. Dr. Pali Lehohla, thank you very much for your time. Let's just start with, one of the biggest stories of the day, Ramaphosa returning with a better majority, actually, than he did in his last outing. Even before his win, some economists were saying that without him, support for the party would plummet come 2024. I'd like your thoughts on his victory.
Well, I think there would certainly be continuity. But the question is what kind of continuity in South Africa? We've seen continuity of high unemployment, low economic growth, and all things that are are really bad for South Africa. So, from where I see it, I see continuity of the same, given what one looks when one looks at the economic policies that are on the table and that have been there. They are basically born out of the National Treasury document of 2019, and that document has led to where we are now. So there is very little that by way of change in that document that can change the fortunes of South Africans. I mean, the policies don't say anything about what will be the trajectory of jobs. The policies, if you look at the National Treasury document, which was the basis for the budget speech of the minister, tells you that by 2026 there will be more unemployed, which will be about 38%. There will be higher debt to GDP ratio and all those things. And the question is there in the policy space something that says we will change that, and when we've changed it, it will be less, it will be that, it will be that. There's none of that. So given that vacuum of an alternative, you expect more of the same. And the situation with electricity suggests that it will be worse. Now we are on stage level 6. And of course, the solution to this is deploying the army. I think it's encouraging that the army is deployed. But this should have been done long ago so that there is no cable theft, because the presence of the army would have curbed cable theft. But now the reaction is too late. So in my language is that the last bird leaves with being beaten. So yes, I think there has been a policy conference that has been very successful, well contested, and somebody emerging, the president emerging. It's welcome for stability, but stability at a deteriorating economic performance level. Let me make an example. When Madiba came in 1994, the situation was similar to this. But when we measured in 1996, and the report was out in 1998, there was definite progression in the lives of blacks in this country. I doubt if by 2024 we will see any difference. I think the decline will continue. So within 2 years, it is possible to make meaningful change if people are focused. So we saw more people having water compared to 1994 and 1996 from that census results. Education, more education. Of course, at that time, a spray gun approach would have done better, would have still worked, because there was so much deprivation. But in the course of time, in the decline that we have seen since 2012, the decline has been so massive, and the spray gun approach may just work well between now as we move forward. But the policies do not permit such a vigorous investment in people's capabilities and abilities and participation, be it from participation through employment.
Dr. Lehohla, as you speak, you invoke so much sobriety against the backdrop of the euphoria of political survival in Nasrec. And of course, that is the moment, and the party must be allowed to have that moment, I suppose. But as you put these factors together, the sheer crisis that South Africa is in becomes more and more apparent. And we're speaking about it not from an emotional level, but really from a quantitative level. Given that that is the case, and given that, as you say, that Treasury document and blueprint doesn't provide creativity, ideas that meet the moment, and in fact you're predicting a steeper decline over the years ahead, what is the urgent work that the ANC has to do now? I mean, its policy conference was 6 months ago. This was the national conference and the elective conference. What are the things they need to be signaling in society that do stand a chance of turning this around?
Well, let me put it to you this way. In 2020, at the onset of pandemic, business came together with a litany of things, a laundry list of things that they came to government to look at so that we could deal with COVID-19. Because there are no instruments to capture or to galvanize and discuss economic policy, that laundry list was ignored. There were some peaks here and there, but the basis for those peaks is not like the rationality of embedded modeling and tools of foresight to know what may happen. The problem that we have, and I've repeated this and I'll repeat, we've had 13, 14 plans in 28 years. And you cannot govern a country with 28 things every 2 years, a toy for the country, called a plan or a planning system. When you don't have the tools to engage the plans at a technical level, with foresight outcomes, then you don't have anything, and we still do not have that. So when we do not have that, we cannot move. I mean, I was talking to Sipho Pichana at the onset of this. I said, colleagues, I know you are leading business. Why don't you sit with government, search for tools that will inform you for a better plan? They said, well, we are too busy. There's no time for planning. There are too many plans. I said, exactly. Because there are too many, it means they are not plans. Because you are avoiding the path to real things. I mean, if you look at China, they have a plan that lasts 10 years, projecting to 30 years. I was in China after the conference of ANC in Mangaung. I presented the census results. I got invited to China to go and discuss their census results of 2010 in the context of the economic implications on the demography of China, given that 60 years before, they went for a one-child policy. Then they were saying, our economy is actually a danger to our population. What then do we do now? At the ANC conference in Mangaung, I was dressed in yellow. I blended very well. It was song and everything. The census results were not used. So this is the danger we are facing in this country, of the evidence not being used, first, or observed. Second, the absence of tools to digest that evidence. And therefore, there is no well where government and business and civil society come together through a technical process that is politically managed to generate the futures that South Africa needs. It's always a 3-year cycle of MTF. And MTF generates these perpetual plans every 3 years. So the 3-year MTF is not an accident that we have had plans every 2 years, a toy for the nation every 2 years. It is driven by the MTF processes. They generate that. So there's the systemic problem. Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Lehohla, you know, again, I always really enjoy our conversations, and you speak so much sense. And that's a stinging rebuke you're actually serving on the ANC there, in that distance between some of the empirical data and what influence that ought to be having on its policies and the formulation of its, strategic vision and plans for the country. You talked about the policy conference, a 180-page document that they had on its strategic governing architecture, and they make all of these acknowledgements that you talk about that blight us now. now, the failure in the education system since 1994, talking about reviews of the training system to do things like spur young people into entrepreneurship, close the quality gap between urban and rural schools, and stop the declining numbers in children learning maths, for example. Our literacy crisis, our literacy rates described as a crisis. Who are the voices then, as you look at this top 7, and that do have the wherewithal to be able to inject the sobriety that is needed to pull us back from the brink?
Well, those documents are by the ANC. It's exhortations. You see, it's like the Bible. You read all the policy conferences, they say it's the same thing. The ills of incumbency. I think from where I sit, I've seen the former public protector, then followed by the Zondo Commission, then followed by, or rather the public protector, followed by Mokwen's judgment on President Zuma, followed by the Zondo Commission, and then the panel paper, which went into Parliament on Pala as possible glimmers of hope to shed light on the weaknesses, serious weaknesses and defaults that are there in the executive. But that hardly approaches the need for well-informed plans that are informed by information that can actually, ahead of time, project what the results could be. So if you think about the Indula Meti scenarios, they show 3 outcomes: the Gwara Gwara scenario, the Isibujwa scenario, and the Naila Walk scenario. Each one of those outcomes are a result of a particular policy stance and a particular combination of policies. We are in a Gwara Gwara, a land of disorder, and a land of despair. It is a deliberate outcome. It is an outcome of a deliberate policy choices that avoid the Naila Walk policies. So it is the absence of that instrument that shows you the options and then allow the discussions at policy conference about these options so that, like China said, we realize that the one-child policy that we took 60 years ago was positive for economic growth. But that economic growth on our population is likely to cause us a lot of problems at that demographic choice. Right. Because now we are having a population that is aging, and therefore we don't have a population that can consume. So we have to change our strategy in terms of our population size or our population structure.
On that note, Dr. Lehohla, we have to leave it there. We have to leave it there. As I say, I can listen to you for a long time in terms of the obvious opportunities that do lie there for the tacticians and the strategists inside the ANC to use the data in a way that can make a material impact in society through some material changes in their policies. Dr. Pali Lehohla, we appreciate your time. Thank you. He is the former Statistician-General.